Hello YouTube world, Pretend Farmer here. Not a real farmer, just pretending. We just finished up a good home-cooked farm meal here on the farm, and we got a few leftovers. Let me show you what we got here. We got a dish with an assortment of food in it. There's some broccoli. There's some rotisserie chicken in there. There is a couple French fries and some cheese puffs. What a wonderful assortment of food. You know, keeping a container like this on hand to put your leftovers in each day is a great way to cut your feed cost and save on your chicken feed bill. They're gonna eat less if they're eating more of your table scraps. And the fact is, chickens are omnivores, which means they can eat fruit, they can eat vegetables, they can eat meat. They can eat just about everything. There's a few things they can eat, and I will get into what they can't have here in a little bit. But, you know, for the most part, your leftovers that you're throwing down the garbage disposal and in the trash can, you could be feeding to your chickens. And not only are you cutting down on your waste, you're saving money because less feed they're going to eat in the evenings if they're eating your table scraps. And the chickens, they catch on to this real quick because my chickens know when it's dinner time and that front door opens and they see us walking out with a dish, you better believe they get there quick because they know it's feeding time. Let me show you. Well, looky who's here. Oh, you knocked a flower over. Now that's going to cause some problems later. All right, well, we'll pretend we didn't see that. All right. Who's ready for Din Din? Who's ready for Din Din? We ready? Yes, we are feeding our chickens chicken, and they love it. I don't think they actually know. And they're really slaying those cheese puffs. And so there you can see how in just a few minutes, probably about 5 minutes now, pretty much all of our leftovers that I brought out here are gone, other than a few cheese puffs and a few pieces of broccoli. And now before they go to bed, they're not going to eat as much of their feed, which is going to save us on our feed bill. It's great. So we've established already that feeding your chickens table scraps is a great way to recycle. It's less wasteful than throwing your food away. And it could potentially, well, it's definitely going to save you money on your feed bill because it's going to result ultimately in the chickens eating less of your feed, especially if you don't free range your birds. But what you all came here for is to know, well, what can I feed my chickens, right? Well, Pretend Farmer has made a list, and I want to run through it here with you just to let you know roughly what all foods you can and can't and should and shouldn't feed your chickens. All right. So first of all, never, ever, ever feed your chickens anything moldy. Don't feed them moldy bread. Don't feed them moldy anything. The mold is bad for them. It'll make them sick just like it'll make us sick. So don't think just because it's moldy, oh, well, the chickens won't mind it. That's a bad idea. So no mold. Don't feed them chocolate or any candy, obviously. That would just be crazy. You want to really make sure you don't give them foods with a lot of salt in them because the salt is not good for them. So don't feed them, you know, boatloads of salt. Just a little trace amounts. I've done it and never had any problems. Green tomatoes or unripe tomatoes can actually be poisonous to chickens. So don't feed your chickens those. And for the most part, I think the chickens actually know this because they've had access to my tomato plants in the past. When there were ripe green tomatoes on there, they wouldn't touch them. So they're not completely stupid. Don't feed them raw potatoes or any kind of potato skins that are uncooked. Same kind of deal with the tomatoes. They can be poisonous to chickens. You want to avoid feeding your chickens any kind of garlic or onions. And this is not necessarily because these are bad for your chickens, but the flavor from the garlic and the onions, obviously, which is kind of strong, that flavor can get passed down into the eggs, and it can cause your eggs to actually have a strange garlicky, oniony flavor. Most people wouldn't find that very appealing, especially if you're selling your eggs. So that's something to keep in mind. What you feed your chickens gets passed into the eggs. Garlic, onions, ugh, that's not good. That's going to taste nasty, so don't do that. Don't feed them anything to do with rhubarb. Here's a really good one. Fruits. Now, my chickens love fruits. They love blueberries, strawberries. They're especially fond of watermelons. But when it comes to things like apples and pears, and you know, these fruits that got seeds in them, you want to try and get the seeds out, because while it's perfectly fine for chicken to eat apples, apparently the seeds can contain little toxins in them, and you know, that's really not good for the chickens to be eaten. I can't imagine that a chicken eating 1 or 2 apple seeds would cause it much harm, but I guess it's something you want to try and prevent. So try and get the seeds out if you're going to feed them fruits like apples and fruits. Watermelon, I've always just cut the watermelon in half. Obviously, there's no real good way to take the seeds out of that. But just do the best you can with apples and stuff, because those seeds do apparently contain toxins. So proceed with caution there. Another thing is raw eggs. Now, it's not that your chickens can't eat raw eggs. They love them. They'll eat them. A lot of times you have an egg that'll break in the nest box or something by accident, and then your chickens will come along and they'll clean it up. They got no problem eating that, and it doesn't hurt their health. But you don't want to get your chickens in the habit of eating raw eggs, because once they learn what the raw eggs taste like, that's how you create little monsters. And then you have chickens in the nest box pecking the eggshells open so that they can get their raw treat out, their raw egg. If you're going to feed your chickens eggs, which is kind of counterproductive, but you can do it, we've done it here before, it can be nutritious for them. But if you're going to do that, make sure that you at least either take the eggshell completely out and scramble them or something, or if you want to give them the shell back, which I recommend because it's got some nutrients in it, there's calcium in that eggshell, you can crunch that shell up real fine so that it's just tiny little pieces of shell and mix in with the eggs. You just don't want them to draw the connection between, hey, that shell breaks open and I've got a raw egg there that I can eat, because when you get chickens in the habit of eating their eggs, a lot of times they don't stop. Once they start doing it, they're going to keep doing it. And then other chickens see some doing it, they jump in. Next thing you know, you're not hardly getting any eggs at all because your chickens are eating all of them, and there's no way to stop it. You pretty much have to get rid of them and start with a fresh batch of chickens, because that's just a habit they can't break. So, well, I take that back. We're going to be doing a video here on this soon, but you can put wooden eggs in their nest box, and sometimes by putting wooden eggs in there, the chickens will kind of peck those wooden eggs and it gives them a headache, and then they decide that they don't want to go in there and peck around anymore. So that can potentially work, but it's better off to not have to fight that battle. The best way to keep your chickens from eating their eggs is to never let them start. So don't feed your chickens raw eggs. Also, on the subject of raw, you never want to feed your chickens raw meat. Cooked meat is fine. Hamburger, they love it. They love taco meat. They love any of that. A whole lot of greasy food is not good for your chickens, just like it's not good for you and me. So use moderation there. And on that note, you know, bread. Bread is not good for your chickens, you know, carbs. They can eat a little bit of it, they love it, but you don't want to feed them large quantities of bread. Don't do it very regular, just a little bit here and there occasionally. Another thing I forgot to mention on the subject of fruits is citrus fruits. They don't like those, you know, your really citrusy orange type fruits. Chickens don't like them, you know. Stick with your sweeter stuff like your blueberries, strawberries, that kind of stuff. The real citrusy stuff, I don't think it's necessarily bad for them, they just don't like it. And then dry beans. Don't feed your chickens dried beans. And the last fun fact about what chickens can and can't eat that I'm gonna leave you with is probably my favorite fact, and this is the coolest one of all. I saved it for last. Chickens do not actually have the receptor in their mouth that lets them taste the hot in hot stuff. So that means like you and I, where we eat a ghost pepper and we got to drink 3 gallons of water and we feel like we're going to possibly die, you can feed them to your chickens and they don't even bat an eye at it, because the chickens cannot taste that hotness in that pepper. So you can feed your chickens cayenne pepper. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be fazed by it. And so you might say, well, that's kind of cruel to feed your chickens hot peppers. They don't care. It's perfectly fine. Actually, on the contrary, a lot of people think that it's good to feed your chickens hot stuff like peppers and all. Hot peppers are believed to fight bacteria, bad bacteria that's in their digestive systems, by eating this hot stuff. And there's a lot of debate about that. Some people say, no, that's not true. It can't be proven. Other people swear by it. So I don't really know what to tell you other than it might be something to it. But it's definitely, hot stuff does not hurt your chickens. So I don't want you to think you've harmed them by feeding them something that was a little spicy or a little hot. If anything, you did your chickens a favor. For the most part, chickens can eat just about anything. Just make sure you avoid the few things I gave you on this list of the don't do's. And other than that, throw your table scraps in a bowl, feed your chickens, they'll love you for it. Until next time, this is the Pretend Farmer, signing out.